And we are all set. So, first of all, my name is Nick Wolf. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm your dedicated career coach for the MBA. I'm the director of career services for the FSB. I also teach in the FSB in both MBA and undergrad. And so, we've got a great panel to discuss really just primarily how to seek promotion, what to look for, how to have those conversations, but also if there's other questions that you have just for them relevant to their experience or their career, you can also do that. But I want to really quickly just introduce our panel. And so we have Jordan Pacheco, and I'm going to have them tell their story. But Jordan Pacheco, Quay Snyder, and Aaron Leonard. And so I've got some questions for them, but if you have additional questions, you can either feel free to type them into the chat or raise your hand and we'll make sure that your questions get asked. So, if we're ready to get going, I'm going to go ahead and start off and whoever, Quay, Aaron, or Jordan, whoever wants to start. First of all, just tell us about your current role. And then maybe what you had preceding it, leading up to where you asked for the promotion. So just tell us about your current job, your current role, company, maybe. Who wants to start?
I'm happy to go.
Thanks, Quay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Quay Snyder. I work at Booz Allen Hamilton. So I guess a little bit of background about Booz Allen. We do management consulting. I would say 90% is government focused. So my client is the U.S. Navy, specifically NAVOR. What NAVOR is, it's a command in the Navy that acquires or creates the satellite and comm equipment that goes on Navy ships. Within that organization, I work in the engineering department. I have no technical background whatsoever. I'm purely business. So it's funny, I'm with all these engineers, but that's kind of, I guess, the value that I provide. I turn all their kind of nerd talk into layman's terms, if you will. So yeah, what I'm doing for them is I got put on a project to effectively kind of govern various specs and standards that get pushed through and approved by an admiral at the end. I started out as kind of, I would say, pretty much like a pencil pusher, document minion. I would kind of wrap stuff around. I would have my superiors kind of tell me what to do. I would always have like constant check-ins and kind of naturally, as I got promoted and kind of moved up in my experience, I started, like taking on a task and eventually leading it, from a delivery perspective. And then furthermore, working with a team, kind of managing a larger team, to now where I'm at, I would say, I'm kind of managing a larger capability within a larger division. So just that's the slow, I guess, progression for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Quay. Aaron, you want to go next?
Sure.
Awesome, thanks.
So my name is Erin Leonard, and I graduated from the MBA program in the evening cohort of 2017. And the MBA program was a really good jumping off point for me to make a huge career pivot. So prior to the MBA program, I was in event sales. And so I was running a wedding venue in Carlsbad and doing some event production sales. And what I quickly found out is that events are tough because everyone has your cell phone number and everyone can call you on the weekends and ask what color napkins they want for their wedding 2 years away. And that wasn't what brought me joy. I had so much more fun selling and working with my customers and doing some upsells and things like that. So through my time in the MBA program, I realized that the best thing for me to do was almost to take a step back in my career to get into tech. And so have this conversation a lot with people, and that is software is one of these beasts where they only really honor your time that you've done at software companies. So although I had sales on my resume, it wasn't honored as sales in software. So I started as an MDR, which is a market development representative up in San Francisco at DocuSign. And similar to Quay, was working for someone else, was doing pipeline for my account executive and generating opportunities for them to close. And then after a year in that seat, I moved to be an account executive myself, where I was running my own book of business. Quickly found out that the Bay Area was not the place for me and wanted to be back in the land of fish tacos and sunshine. So quickly moved back down here after 2 years up there to work for Classy. We are a social enterprise and we sell fundraising software for nonprofits. So I joined Classy as a renewal manager, still in the sales world, but doing contract renewals and upsells and expansion. And then after 6 months of doing that role, my biggest promotion that was asked for and was given was my current role, which I am managing a sales team. So I'm managing our entry-level sales team, 10 SDRs that are doing pipeline generation for our commercial reps.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jordan Pacheco. I currently work for General Atomics Aeronautical Systems. We specialize in the development and production of unmanned aerial vehicles, aka drones. I started with the company actually right after my undergrad. So I started probably back in 2017. The MBA program already helped me out right then and there because it was the connection to the alumni group with the MBA program that helped me get this job and make that connection. So I started as a data management specialist. Then after a year, was promoted to a project admin level 1. And right after I received my MBA, I was promoted once again to a project admin level 2. So I primarily work in international programs. My biggest customer right now is the UK MOD. And I also serve as the DM lead for international programs. So I also help oversee other programs in that space. So that's a quick little summary of what I do.
Awesome, thanks, Jordan. So let me ask you, this is a quick yes or no. Was the role that you're currently in that you were promoted into, is that the role that you had expected or even asked for? Or was it, did you ask for something and they moved you into something different? Or was the role that you're in now, is that the one that you asked for or were hoping to get promoted into? And we can start with Quay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say it was pretty clear. And the trajectory was also pretty clear, so yes.
Okay. Aaron?
It's a yes for me.
Okay. And Jordan?
Yep, a yes for me as well.
Cool. So, so you read a lot of articles about how do you do this, how do you ask for promotions, and one of the big missteps that people can make is either asking for too much or not asking for enough. And so I guess this question would be, and however, whoever wants to, I'd love for all three of your responses, but did you do research? How did you know that you were asking for the right promotion or the right position, or even, we'll talk a little bit about money, but the right money? What research did you do? What resources did you use, or did you use any, or was it just kind of a, hey, I'm gonna ask for this? Not sure if I'm right for it or not. Tell me the story. How about that?
For me personally, I think it kind of started on day one of the job. I knew I wanted to eventually become a program manager. So internally, there were some job descriptions I found in the sense of the qualifications to get to that role and the steps you had to take. So that kind of helped kind of guide my trajectory into the current role I am now. And it was also just kind of conversations with my boss over the years and saying, you know, this is where I want to end up. How do I position myself into getting into that role? And so naturally from, you know, a data management specialist to a project admin was the next step. So I think it was kind of clear in the sense of looking for the HR requirements and also having those conversations with my boss earlier on. What were those next steps to get me eventually to become a program manager?
Okay. Aaron or Quay?
I can, yeah. So I will go. So yeah, how did I know I was kind of asking for enough or not too much or whatever? Coming in like in the early part of my young career, it's like I've only been in the role for like 6 years, but coming into that, like my initial kind of motivation was I was pretty salary motivated because I'd come into my job with my MBA already. So I felt like, you know, I was owed a little bit more than what I'd kind of initially got. So for me, that was kind of a sticking point that I was pretty vocal about when I first, you know, accepted the job and was asking about, hey, there is progression right forward and it's in this salary range that I'm kind of seeking. So for me, I had that on my side, and then also the being vocal part, and then also I did do a lot of research. I would say that was super helpful. But yeah, it's hard. You kind of got it's timing too, but we'll probably get into that.
Yeah. What research, you said you had to do a lot of research. Was it internal? Again, I know Jordan said talking about HR, was it internal HR job descriptions? Was it salary.com because you were kind of more salary motivated? What were the tools that you used, or can you?
Yeah, no, I definitely use, so start with Google, obviously. I used Indeed and Glassdoor a lot for like general like industry, I guess, estimates for, you know, someone in my role in other states or other companies that have a similar role. And then also something that I don't think gets talked about a lot is like networking too. I tried to grow my network pretty quick and kind of, you know, get in with those people. And you know, I did actually discuss numbers with some like coworkers, which was something that was a little taboo, I felt like a few years ago, or maybe before I entered the workforce. But
Yeah,
you know, I was kind of exhausting all the resources I had in terms of networking, and then also Google. But
okay.
I don't know, some people are weird with that, but
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Aaron, I saw that you just typed something in the chats. If you, yeah, I love that.
No, this is where we know my brain has stopped working on a Tuesday. I'm trying to take notes for myself and hit enter on accident. So, but perfect transition, I guess.
Yeah.
No, very similar. What I was writing about, Jordan, was that's something I tell my reps all the time, is that your promotion begins with the day you start at the company. Especially at a smaller company, the choices that you make in your current role are always watched by management, and the success you have, I think that there's a lot more higher level oversight into you and your role than you would imagine. So keep that in the back of your mind, especially as you're, you know, it's a little different now being in a Zoom world, but if you're ever out with coworkers or out with higher level senior management, similar to Quay, like I took opportunities to network and just make sure that when my name came up in the room, that people knew who I was and weren't saying, we don't know the contribution she's made to the company. So I think that's a huge piece of this. And the other side of it is I almost wish I did a little more research. And so to your point, Nick, like looking at salary.com and realizing what my range was. One thing I didn't notice and I didn't realize about the way that the HR teams typically work is that they usually have pay bands. And so that's something that as I started to negotiate, I realized that you're kind of locked in with the pay band for that role. And so even though you might be at the higher end of the pay band, if you're trying to negotiate out of it, it's pretty hard for them to justify paying you outside the pay band. So understanding what a typical compensation structure looks like for the role you want, that's something that somebody in HR can always share with you, just the salary range of what that job entails. That's helpful to understand so that you don't, you know, shoot for the moon and end up in a different spot than where you wanted to be. So that's one thing I learned. And I also learned that there's a lot of different types of negotiation. And so when you can't get necessarily the salary you want, you could potentially negotiate for stocks or negotiate for different benefits when it comes to your time off. And then the other thing that's always important, and something that I'm glad I did when I was kind of in that negotiation period with this promotion, was I made it very clear, similar to Quay, where I wanted to be promoted at the next available opportunity. And so I made it clear that since they weren't able to meet my expectations, that I would deliver value and that I got the date of the next time they were doing promotions so that I knew what I was working towards. And it was clear to them that that's what I was working towards. So it's kind of, in my opinion, it's okay to not necessarily win right away, as long as you have the vision towards what you want to get. And it's not an astronomical time frame. So it was within 6 months of my promotion that I wanted to work towards the next step.
Yeah, that's a great story. And that's, I love you talking about the pay band, like understanding that, yeah, if you go to HR, they can give you that information. And it's completely accessible, completely public. And then there's smaller companies that obviously don't even think that big, but yeah, I love that thought. I think all of you said something in terms of networking. I'm going to jump a question here. I wanted to talk about goals, but I want to ask you really quickly about the people that advocated for this promotion for you. And so anybody can answer this, or all three of you, I'd love to hear your response. But did you have an advocate that helped, take this promotion up to HR? And if so, how did you know that person? How did you identify that person to be your advocate? What were the conversations you had? And how did you know that that person was going to actually follow through on that? Did anybody have your back during this promotion process? Erin, you're already on the screen.
Sure.
Why don't you start?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
I'm a tried and true networker. I think from all the stories I tell in my corporate career, it's all about who you know. And so I find this really important. And I think it's also important to diversify who you network with in your company. One thing that I learned was who was going to be in the room as I asked for this promotion, who was on the executive team that would be voting, if you will, on this promotion. And so at least getting face time with those people was helpful so that they knew what my intention was and they knew why that was the move I was hoping to make. So if you're able to learn who the decision makers are, that's always good to at least get virtual coffee with them for them to know who you are. But my biggest advocate was definitely my current manager. And one thing that he taught me was to create kind of like a brag sheet for yourself. And this is something that I wish I was told earlier in my career, but even something as simple as a Google Doc, it doesn't need to ever see nobody else needs to see this document other than you, but a place for you to put your wins and things you're working on so that it's all in one place. And you'll be amazed how much you forget when you go back 6 months later to add something to that document that you want to highlight when you go for a promotion. Even little things. For me, being in management, it was how many people I coached, how many people I managed, like metrics and the value I brought to the business. And then all I had to do was email him that document. And then he was able to bring all of that up in the room when the doors were closed, when they were all talking about my promotion without me. So I almost led the horse to water, if you will, on what I was looking for and what I did to get there. And I think it's a little type A, but it's definitely helpful for you to know what your value is and kind of share what the impact of what you've done is for the business.
And Jamie typed that in there. That is a great suggestion. I think it's like having that master resume. Here's all the things that I've done, and just keeping a list of all the accomplishments you've had. Keep a list of all the people you've influenced. Or I think that, Erin, that's a great idea. Everybody should take that one and put a pin in it. Jordan, I know, and then we'll get to you, Quay. But Jordan, I know you had an advocate. I believe your manager.
Yeah. No, it's a two-part for me, and it might be a longer story, but the short version is there's two parts for it for me. It's one, creating that relationship with my manager and that trust where it kind of formed into a mentorship. I think that kind of grew since day one, kind of having that mentality of like, I'm a go-getter, I'm an achiever, like any of the problems you have, any problem programs I want to learn. So I think she saw that and kind of fostered that a little bit. So I think in the beginning, she kind of tested me. When I first started, I was kind of assigned to a pretty big program. And I think it was a way of her seeing like, can Jordan handle this pressure? Can he perform? And luckily I was able to perform in that. And so it was a gradual step of kind of, I originally reported to a supervisor under her to then directly reporting to her. So when I got this promotion, one, it was that relationship and talking about it, and kind of even before, because a little bit backtrack with DOD and HR requirements, I've learned recently that they have to have certain requirements in order for you to reach the next level. And for me, that's the toughest one is years of experience. There's no way you get around that. If you don't have 6, 8, 10 years of experience, then they're not going to consider you for the role, even though you meet all the other requirements. And so by the time I was wrapping up my MBA, I was having these conversations of, hey, I'm almost done. I would like to go on to the next level. Like, what do I need to do? And essentially, putting that in her mind and getting her ready when the opportunity came up for that promotion, she told me, Jordan, you do qualify because now you have 2 years of experience in the MBA. Now that you're done, add another 2 years. So now you met the requirement. So I was able to get in the door that way. But also, like what Erin said is like, just looking for my role, I track everything I do. So like there's data that backs my performance, which is really good because I could show in my annual review, like here's everything I did this year, and compared it to the team or how compared to peers, you could see how I perform against them. And then another thing that I just started doing too that was really helpful in the end with this promotion was I would take emails from senior directors or program managers that gave me some kind of kudos or, hey, great job. And I would save those emails and I would put those in my annual review. And so she had a list of these people that I'm not only saying I'm doing a good job, but these people outside my team that have no, horse in the game for my promotion at all, saying, look at what Jordan has done as well. And then she could take that information and show it to her manager and say, Jordan barely makes the requirements, but look what I could show you that he's done. Look at all the deliverables he made. Look at what everyone's saying about him. And that made it so much easier for her to advocate for me in that conversation for that next promotion, which I eventually did get. So yeah, my manager was definitely my biggest advocate in this promotion.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember our conversation in that if you can get your manager, not just to be your manager, but to be, and if they're a true leader as opposed to just a manager, they should be your mentor. They should be, they should always be thinking about succession planning. If they're a good leader, they should be thinking about who could take my place. Where can this person go? If this person goes, then this person can step right in. And so I love that. I love the fact that your manager actually considers you a mentor-mentee relationship. That's great. Quay, how about you? I know you talked a little bit about networking. Was there one person maybe, and if so, how did you develop that relationship?
Yeah. So Booz Allen, buckle up for some corporate jargon here. So Booz Allen we got some a pretty rigorous career managers and job leaders. They're specific roles that you're kind of assigned to. And they are quite literally in charge of your career progression, or at least helpful in your career progression. I was lucky enough, blessed enough to be really good with my career manager, who's kind of in charge and advocating for my promotion. So in that sense, I was very lucky. I would also say, Booz Allen has firm-wide expectations and behaviors, that you would write to. So again, just another way of kind of tracking that and advocating for yourself. And I did also want to, what Jordan was saying about having the kudos thing or whatever. I would anytime I'd go into a career manager, CM Sync, I would always print out all those emails and have them in a folder with me. So anytime we talked about, feedback or whatever, I would kind of have to thumb through, and it was a little bit of theatrics, but whatever, you gotta do something.
Whatever gets the job done, right?
Yeah.
Theatrics is good. Awesome. So I know you already had your MBA, Quay, but either Jordan and I know Jordan, you mentioned a little bit, or Aaron, the question I get quite a bit from the MBAs that I'm coaching is, well, what's my MBA going to be worth to the company? So I should be getting something once I finish the MBA. Did you have an agreement with your current company that the MBA was going to result in a promotion or result in more money? Did you already have that agreement going in? I know, Quay, you said you already, but Aaron or Jordan? Maybe Jordan?
Yeah, there wasn't really an agreement going in.
Okay.
Once again, it was just the conversation,
okay,
checking in every once in a while, hey, am I doing these things right? I'm almost done with my MBA. Is this going to open more opportunities? What can I use this for the next level? So it was more stuff like that. But yeah, I like I said, if it wasn't for the MBA, I don't think I would have been qualified for this next role, because it's boom, MBA, 2 months later, got promoted. And so that really helped out.
That's awesome. And I think that's what a lot of making sure, hey, I took this, I always tell them, hey, I took this class, I'm taking a strategy class. I'd love to utilize some of the stuff that I've learned here in strategy. Can I do something here? Or I've learned this, can I do this now, kind of practice at work, use it in the real world. And so just making sure that they understand. Is that what you're kind of saying, or?
Say that one more time.
Just making sure that they understand that you're tracking your MBA, and when you do learn something, applying it at work.
Yes, yeah. And we would have that conversation. I would have that with my manager, hey, I just learned this week, or I would implement something that directly improved on a process that I just learned the week prior. And I know I didn't mention this for myself, but even that salary conversation was different. I think at the beginning, first job out of college, I was also kind of disappointed with what they had offered. I remember actually talking to you about it and saying, what do I have no bargaining chips here. And it was like, you got your foot in the door, it's the experience that counts. So like this time around, knowing that I had more ability to negotiate, I definitely did negotiate a lot more because of this, because I had now 2 years experience in the MBA. It kind of gave me more room to have that conversation compared to the 2 years prior.
Awesome. And Quay, we just saw, Quay said that his MBA definitely helped him leverage that salary and the promotion. So that's great. Aaron,
Sorry.
go ahead, Quay, go ahead.
No, I was also just gonna say, I was able to weasel out of some certifications too. There's like a PMP one that they require, and I didn't have to get it because I said, hey, I got this MBA. So
That's awesome. I love it. Paying dividends. Aaron, how about you? Did you have an agreement?
I'm a little different because I was not in the role that I am now or the company that I'm at now when I got my MBA.
Okay.
I think also working for a smaller business, you know, Booz Allen and General Atomics are massive companies. And so for like, here I am with my brain not working again, but like for corporate planning, I think it's easier for larger companies to say, you know, an MBA gets you X, Y, and Z, or this level of education gets you X, Y, and Z. At smaller companies, it's difficult to prove value. I don't know if I've necessarily directly seen the impact of my MBA on my salary, but I know that I've directly seen the impact from my MBA on my career progression. And I know that I get promoted faster than other people because of the value I'm able to provide because of my MBA. So I think looking at it outside of the box is also helpful too, especially if you're at a smaller company, because you may not necessarily have somebody who's willing to negotiate with you and value your MBA the way you feel it should be valued. But I can almost guarantee that your time in seat will be shorter and you'll move up faster because you see the bigger picture and you understand the business impact of what you're doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a great point in that. So we talked about salary. You've all three talked a little bit about salary negotiation. I want to make sure we talk about that just for a second. So were these two separate conversations between the role, the promotion, and the salary, or was it just one? Hey, you're going to get promoted to this, and here's your salary, or what was the negotiation like that? And Aaron, you're already on the screen, so you can start. So were they two separate negotiations, negotiation all at once? Tell me about that. Tell me the story.
Yeah, that's a good point. For me, like I mentioned, the pay bands was really something that I learned as I was trying to negotiate. I think that my biggest advice for anyone that's hoping to negotiate upon a promotion is to know your audience. And the person who was delivering the news of my promotion to me was my HR business partner at the time. And she was somebody who I felt I could be a little bit more candid with. Now, if I'm sitting at DocuSign again and I have an HR business partner I don't know well, I don't know if I would have done it this way. So this is where I say knowing your audience is important. But I said to her, hey, Lauren, candidly, I've always heard that you're supposed to negotiate for every role that you're in. It doesn't look like I have a lot of room to negotiate. Where do you think I can go with this? Can I ask for more? Will they be willing to give me more? Now, again, probably not the best answer for everyone, but she came back and said, you're at the top of the pay band, and so we don't have flexibility with salary. So I went back with stock negotiation and was able to get some additional shares instead of the increase in salary. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I set the milestone that the next promotion cycle was 6 months after I was hired as the manager, and was able to get an additional pay increase on that promotion round because of the value that I communicated from those 6 months in the seat. So it took me a little longer to get to the salary that I wanted to, but I think for a small business, they were looking for me to prove how I am valued at that cost for them.
Love it. That's such a great, and again, that additional, okay, so I can't get it now. When can I get like that? Continue to ask additional questions. I think that's such a great point. Thanks, Aaron. Jordan, how about you? Did you negotiate same time, different?
No, I negotiate around the same time. For me, like with corporate environment, there's definitely a process to it. You usually are talking directly to the HR individual when it comes to something like this. And yeah, we have what Aaron referred to as pay bands. So I roughly knew the current role, how much that made, and like I know I was jumping to a new role, and I kind of had a number in my head, and also how it kind of works is that HR does directly talk to your direct manager about it and approves it. And there are times, and just because of the relationship we had those candid conversations of, you know, is this negotiable, and you know, and then it was like, what number were you looking for, and like we kind of had that conversation back and forth. And so kind of prepping that before I went back to HR to talk to them about it, I did counter with a number, and I think I've learned from her, you're at least allowed to do it once, you know, at least give it one time, you know, it's totally acceptable to at least try once. If you do 2 or 3 times, I think you're kind of pushing it at that point. But for me, I was lucky to negotiate that salary, and then the only caveat was just because of when that salary would have been activated, a month later was our annual merit increase. So they said, well, we give you this, just no, then we won't give you a merit increase. And I was completely fine with that in this particular case. Okay, that's fine. So that was kind of my negotiation strategy.
I like that. I mean, the thing is that there can be flexibility. If you add value, you know, nobody's going to let you walk away, right? If you add value. And so they're going to negotiate. Hopefully, again, this is a long-term relationship. And that's what I want everybody to understand. These are long-term relationships. And so in these long-term relationships, nobody's looking to upset anybody. You're not looking to upset your employer. They're not looking to upset you. They're trying to do a win-win for everybody. And so, so people can be flexible. Companies can be flexible. And so I like that story.
And then just to add to it too, is there's some comfort there after being there for 2 years, like showing, improving the kind of person I am. And it's like, hey, this is the one opportunity we get to talk about my side of this negotiation of work. You know, we always talk about when I'm delivering for them, but it was just like, okay, like in the way you come to it, your tone, how you, like, it's not really heated. It's very much like, okay, can I have this conversation with you, and this honest conversation? And once again, I've been really fortunate that the manager is also very candid and had the honest conversation with back. Because there's other factors there that once again, you don't maybe not know. Like for me, I can't negotiate, you know, extra time off or other benefits. Those are pretty much standard. So this is the only area I had to negotiate. So that's understandable that I would come back with a counter offer in that regard.
No, that's great. Quay, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the question was, is it a separate negotiation or not? And like Jordan said, I got a lot of success out of, you know, turning this into a consistent conversation, right? So it was just candid and it was a conversation. I think the 3 things were like, I was being vocal, you know, I maintained that cadence, or the corporate term drum beat, like a regular monthly drum beat. And then I also just tried to remain transparent with that person, and that was reciprocated from my job leader. So that was great to have. And I was lucky in that situation, or blessed, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's what's worked for me, and it might not work for everyone, but yeah, definitely had success like Jordan.
Appreciate that. Does anybody have a question? I've got a couple more here, but does anybody have a pressing question that they want to ask? They can type it into the chat room if they want. Okay. So I want to go back to a question I was going to ask. I think it's important to set goals, particularly as you're looking for promotion. If you're not looking to promote, then you just do the job and, you know, kind of stay where you're at. But I find the most promotable people have goals set, whether they're business goals, personal goals, and anybody can answer this, but do you have goals set? If so, how do you come up with those? Are they all business related goals or personal goals? Do you have a formula that you use other than SMART? We all use SMART goals, but anybody want to answer that?
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love this question, and I think more than anything else, it's important to communicate your goals, especially to your direct manager. That's one thing that I've learned that's been really helpful, is the more that I'm transparent about where I want to be, either personally or professionally, the more we can work together to get me there. And I think knowing your industry and knowing your company is really important. So I think my career path probably looks very different than Jordan, and looks very different than Quay, and looks very different than somebody who owns their own business. And so for me, realizing I'm working in software that's always changing, and the job market is usually hot and usually very competitive for people who are highly skilled. So I've set a goal for myself to see some sort of progression in my career once a year. whether that's a salary increase or a stock increase or a title increase. I want to see some sort of progression for myself to keep me rooted where I am. And I've made that very clear to my direct manager that there always needs to be kind of that goal at the end that I'm working towards, that I can prove value for. And, the other thing that's important, especially being in the sales role, is communicating what my next financial goals are. Because for a lot of sales roles, we work off of commission, and for your direct manager to know what your personal financial goals are is important. So if that's buying a home, or if that's sending your kids to college, or, moving, buying a second home, whatever the case is, that's helped me because I'm able to work with my manager to make sure that I have, incentives in front of me if I'm doing a great job. And I think, there's the ability, especially in a small company, for them to justify like a bonus. If he knows that I have a goal at the end of the year and he's not able to get me an increase in anything, he might be able to talk, about a bonus if I hit X metrics. So I've always found that it's helpful to communicate what my goals are as well.
Quay, goal setting?
Yeah, I think the SMART goal, I Googled it really quickly, but I do remember learning about it. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound.
Yeah.
Just, great to live by. That's what I've generally used to, set any type of goals. But one thing I think I've noticed too is like having kind of personal goals, and it's really shifted with COVID. Like I value kind of my personal time a little bit more than I did when I first started my career, where I was kind of like really into it. And now I'm like, I like teleworking. I like traveling and seeing my family, when I can, and staying there for weeks at a time. And that's, for me, kind of really shifted as of late. And I've been trying to communicate that to my job leader and career manager as appropriate. But yeah, it's just, I thought I'd bring that up. It was kind of interesting as of
No,
late.
that's awesome. Yeah. And I think a lot of people's goals have shifted around personal versus professional time. And so that's such a great point. And you can't, again, if you're valued, if you bring value, if you're a contributor, your companies are willing to flex a little bit more on stuff like that. So thanks for bringing that up, Quay. Jordan, quickly, did you have anything you want to add on goals or?
Yeah, for me, other than like a certain job or position, I'm always trying to shoot for and grow towards. I think for me, personally, just growing professionally in this world, like, and just new opportunities, new programs. Like when you first start off, you're trying to get your bearings, understand programs, how to manage these things. But now currently in my career is learning how to delegate, and getting the opportunity in this environment, in this particular program, is the new goal of me, is learning how to delegate tasks amongst peers. And that's something that I always aspire to, is like, am I learning something new every year? What am I growing? So not if it doesn't lead to a promotion that year, it at least leads me to something else, it grows me towards that and prepares me for that next opportunity. So it may not happen right away, but it's just, I'm always thinking, how can I prepare well for that next opportunity when it comes across? So
yeah, great. That's great. Next question. This is gonna be kind of an interesting one. Were you prepared to walk away? Like, what was the result? What would have been the result had you not gotten this promotion? Was there a plan B? If then, I love ad hoc and out. So if you didn't get the promotion, then what? You're on the screen, Jordan.
Oh, sorry. Short answer, yes. I think I would have. I think if I didn't get that promotion and kind of felt like a little bit stagnant, then I probably would have looked elsewhere, or kind of looked at other maybe roles internally, or another career. But for me, I think I was ready for a new challenge, and luckily they once again saw value in me and the work I did, and so they made sure to snatch me up before I even considered. Because I think there was also that tone in that conversation of like, I'm ready for something new. And so I think they wouldn't have been shocked if I didn't get this promotion, if I would have gone elsewhere. So I think I was definitely prepared to change things up.
Okay. Quay or Aaron?
For me, mine was just early on in my career. So I didn't really have, and granted, like I said, I was vocal from the start and kind of said, hey, this is kind of expected. So there's a little bit of an assumption there. So I don't think it was that point, but like, yeah, I probably would have, but I was probably in a little bit different situation than Jordan.
Okay. Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, my answer is similar to yours, Quay. I was in an interesting situation when I moved to this role where I didn't love the role I was in. So I was willing to just get out of that as long as I was happy with the terms. But I think, ask me on my next round of promotions. And now that I love the job that I'm in and I know it's the role for me, it might be a different answer. So I think it also depends where you're at personally with all this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working with an MBA right now, and it was interesting. He's working for a big healthcare group here in San Diego. Was offered a job with a big company up in LA, and he accepted the job up in LA, not wanting to accept it, but it was a lot more money. And this healthcare company came back and said, "Well, why didn't you ask us? We can give you more money." Right? And so not being afraid to, before you decide to jump, or it's okay to ask. I think that's what people miss out on a lot of times. They're before they even ask, they kind of jump that step and go right to, I'm going to go find another job because they're not paying me enough. Well,
Yeah.
ask.
It's one thing that we take for granted for sure. I think we forget that as a valued employee, it's really difficult to be replaced. Though your job might be able to be filled, they still have to train someone else, bring someone else on board, get someone else up to speed with what you've been doing. So it's always beneficial if you have any thought that you might want to stay, to go to your current employer and ask. Same thing happened to me when I gave my notice. They said, "We didn't know you wanted to move to San Diego. You could have worked remote." And so I hadn't asked because I didn't want to work remote, but here we are in a pandemic, and I am forced to work remote. But it's always good to know your value and to just understand that, like, usually there's some room for them to be flexible, whether it's salary or location or whatever you need that you're looking for somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, last question. It's kind of a two-part question, but we're going to do it that way. So how is the new role going? Or how are you doing? How is it? Is it everything that you expected it to be? And then two, you can all answer the first one, or any other advice that you might have for our MBAs, or for anybody listening, on what you could do, something specific that you could do to make sure that you're not going to make sure you get the promotion, but something you can do additionally that we haven't talked about. So how's it going? How's this role going for you? And then what could they do? One piece of advice. Erin, you're on the screen, so we'll start with you.
Sounds good. It's going great. I love this new role. I have really realized that people management is what fuels me. Coaching people, making sure that I am responsible for others' development. That's what's really exciting to me. Sales is a bonus, and it's fun to be in a social role, but it's really the people management that gets me excited every day. So I am thrilled that this was the path that led me here, because I also think there's something to be said for a manager who understands the role that you're in and where you're hoping to go. So I knew that as a manager, I wanted to kind of collect different things in my tool belt so that I would have good anecdotes and good insight for people who are looking to shift their career into post sales, or who are looking to move up to the AE role. I could speak to those roles very clearly, and I knew that for me, I valued that in my managers. So I think there's also something to be said for kind of doing your time in the beginning roles before you move up into this, definitely. And then part two, as far as any additional advice, there's one activity that we do quarterly on my team that I think is really helpful. And it's really simple. We take a Post-it note and we write down 3 to 4 words that we want to be known for internally. So it can be anything that you would be proud to have somebody say about you. My words were creative, dependable, and unique. And I really wanted people to be able to talk about my work and me in that way. And so that helped me. I put it on my monitor to be able to think about that with the emails that I send, with the projects that I start, with the meetings that I'm in, because then you know that you're selling yourself kind of. Even when you're not looking for a promotion, you're still making sure that your brand is consistent. So just recognizing that even if you're in the middle of a promotion, or if you have to do 2 more years until you ask for something else, or whatever your holding cell period is, you still can work towards that next goal. And networking is always important. I can't say that enough. Like, asking people for 15-minute virtual coffees or just time to get to know each other is so critical. and coming to those meetings with something prepared. There's nothing worse than somebody asking for your time and not having questions ready or not wanting to strike up a conversation. So if you're going to ask for the time, just be ready to ask good questions and to listen. But those are some critical things I would say are huge when you're looking for a promotion.
Appreciate that, Aaron. Jordan, you want to go next?
Yeah. Okay. So overall, things are good. Definitely more challenging, but now I'm learning in this part of my career of like, I really like my personal time and that flexibility. So just because I'm learning, like, it's great to have a higher position, but that comes with more responsibility, hence like less flexibility. So now I'm trying to figure out how much do I want to be flexible in having, you know, my professional career and personal life. But some of the things I mentioned in regards to promotion that I'd like to kind of touch on a little bit more is one is just kind of developing that trust and accountability, making sure that's kind of part of your personal brand, especially with something that my boss gently reminded me last week was your boss is first. Make sure you're responding to their emails first, IMing them first, because they're going to be your biggest advocate down the line when it comes to promotion. And then something else is just learn your industry and your company's culture. Is promoting within something that is the norm, or is there other, you know, for DoD, are there restrictions from allowing you to move on to that next step? So really learn the culture, learn the industry. Is that something that's are constantly promoting people, or is that something a little bit slower? And then if it's something in your company that's not the norm, are you willing to move on to something else? So those are kind of the two things I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Maria, did you have a question?
I did. Thanks for you guys putting this together, by the way. But if it's not necessarily a promotion within your group, let's just say you've had senior leadership tell you that if you ever apply for a job within their org, like a director or VP, to let them know, like when you're in a big organization, or somebody who you worked for before who was maybe your manager, and now they're like a director, VP, and they say, hey, they run into you in a hallway like a year ago or 2 years ago, and they say, hey, if you ever do apply for a job within the org, let me know. And it's been 2 years, you haven't talked to them, and now there is an opportunity. Would you guys, like, I know they've said for us to go ahead and reach out to them, or like in my case, directly, I've been told, but I find it kind of crass to just email them and be like, hey, I applied for this position within your org, you know, but I don't know if that's exactly what I should do. Maybe it's just so different for me now. And especially with a company so big like mine, you know, it's like General Atomics, but we're huge. And I want to be able to cross and go into those other organizations and work over there, but I don't know how to necessarily like go ahead and tell them, yeah, I applied for a job. You know, especially if they're not the direct hiring manager. They're like 2 levels up of the hiring manager or the next level up, you know?
Yeah. I have a thought, but does somebody want to answer that? Anybody have a thought on that?
Jump in. Maria, you are your biggest advocate. And if you do not hit this person up, you are doing yourself a disservice. Like, I think the greatest thing you can do is have FaceTime. And I understand the thought that you might just be asking for a favor, or like you don't talk to them for 2 years and then you want something from them. Use time to catch up and genuinely be invested in what's new with them and what's going on, and then tell them that you applied for the job. I don't think that there's anything bad about asking them to get together or to take 10 minutes to chat with you over the phone and just like genuinely get to know where they're at. I think sending an email out of the blue that just says, hey, I applied for a role in your org is probably not the best, because I think if you're over the phone or if you're over Zoom, you can get their sentiment of how they feel about your application. And then you can also ask for them to be an advocate for you, or ask them if there's somebody else that they could introduce you to that you can talk to about the role. Especially in a big organization, if you have someone 2 levels up that's emailing someone 2 levels below them to say, hey, meet Maria, I mean, that's invaluable. So I would use that all the time.
Yeah. And remind him, Maria, I always like to use Joe. That Joe is my go-to name. Hey, Joe, I know it's been a while, but you know, you had recommended that if something came up in your organization, I should apply to it. I know it's been a while, but I did. Right? I'm with Aaron. You have to be your biggest advocate. And again, hey, hope you're doing well. You know, started off very friendly. Hey, I hope you're doing well. You know, we haven't talked in a while. I remember you saying if something came up, well, it did come up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. He's the one, if it's a he, if his name is Joe, I don't know if it's Joe or not, but if they came at you and said, hey, if we ever get something, or if I'd love to have you in my group. You're just reminding them.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, Jordan or Quay?
I agree. And I could be oversimplifying it, but I mean, the worst thing they could say is no, and you know.
Yeah.
But
And
again,
you still
that
have
could
a
be-
job.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, and
Go for it.
yeah, and I would just add on, if I was that person, you know, if I remember, you being a great worker and like all these great things, you know, I would just continue where we left off. You know, 2 years, it really isn't that long. Everyone's busy in their own thing. So when you go back, like, oh, I remember this person, they did such a great job. Yeah, of course I'll send an email over, and that's usually the response. If they're a great leader and they definitely wanted you, they'll definitely, I think, have that same response of course. So I would definitely send an email for sure.
Awesome. Quay, go ahead and wrap us up here. So I know you've had yours for a little bit longer, but your job's going well at Booz?
Yeah, job's going great. Like Jordan said, a little bit of delegation is kind of weird. Just making sure people do stuff as good as I think I do stuff, you know, is important. And then people management is fun. I definitely do enjoy it. But as you kind of go up, and I'm not even that high up the ranks or whatever, but your aperture kind of, you know, it largens, and there's so many different personalities and just stuff you're exposed to. It's just so much different than being like project focused. So, but other than that, it's going great. Love it.
Awesome. And then any words of advice? One word of
advice. I kind of already said it, but I think the 3 things that I had was like, be vocal, maintain that cadence, and remain transparent. I think if you can do that with the people advocating for you, you can be successful. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. Appreciate the 3 of you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, I'm gonna post this. It's being recorded, and so I'll post this up in the Canvas MBA space. But I'm so happy for the 3 of you. You know, more success is definitely coming, I know, for you. And so I love to see our alums doing so well. And so thank you again. I'm going to let you go now. And if there's anything that we can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Everyone.
Bye.